Hello everyone and welcome to the live stream. I am really excited for this live stream because I have been working on this workflow for a while and a lot of folks have reached out to me. They want to, get this workflow for themselves, and that's why I've thought, why not do a live stream and show you how I created this and how you can create the same workflow. So before jumping into that, let me quickly show you a quick demo of what we are gonna build today. And over here is the demo video. So you see, let's wait, write it, replay it again. So I execute the workflow. It gets the followers from that. We do some data manipulation. We get the avatars of our users. We create that dynamic banner and then we upload it on Twitter. Now, as mentioned, it seems like a lot of work, but with N10, the process becomes quite easy. So if you're not aware about what N10 is, well, it's a low-code automation platform with which you can create all sorts of automation workflows. For example, I recently created GitHub Wrap. Now that is running via N10. So I have N10 workflows running behind the scenes, which execute that workflow, and you get to see the beautiful your beautiful GitHub Wrap, something similar like this. All right. So I am using N10 again. Now I have self-hosted N10 on my own servers. You can use N10 Cloud or you can even use the N10 Desktop app. I do a lot of configurations. I try out a lot of things and I don't want to, mess up with any kind of settings. So I use N10. I host N10 on my own servers, play around, break it, try out different configurations, and then create some awesome stuff. All right. So before jumping into this, I want to show you the workflow live again. If I execute this workflow, I think you are not going to see the changes here. I am assuming because we have already the latest followers updated over here, but let's try it out. So I am going to execute the workflow. Oops. Let's pause this. That's a trigger node. We don't want to execute from there. Let's execute. All right, the workflow ran. If we come back over here, did it change? No. But yeah, if we go back to the workflow and see the output, over here, because this is where the image is. If I open the BG, you will see the whole dynamic workflow. All right, so I got inspired to create this from Black Magic. So if you have not heard about Black Magic, it's an amazing platform to increase your Twitter experience. They have a lot of cool stuff going on there. Let's see if I can get that Black Magic. Oh, yeah. They have a lot of cool stuff going out there. You can see they have a lot of tools. They have recently got Magic Sidebar, which is something I've heard a lot about, and I am willing to try it out. There is profile progress bar. There is real-time banners, which we are gonna create today. Then there is a way to visualize your followers and your following, and then you can always have a sleep indicator. So this was my inspiration to create it. Enough of talking. Let's start with this. All right. The initial idea was to run this workflow every 15 minutes or every hour to fetch the new followers and update it, but it wasn't ideal. So what I did was I switched to a different approach. Not sure if I'm gonna able to show that because it involves a lot of steps, but hopefully if we have time at the end, I would be happy to show you that as well. All right. So first things first, we need is to fetch the followers. Now we have a Twitter node in N10, but if I show you the node, currently it does not have the functionality to fetch the followers. So what I am doing is I am using the native HTTP request node, which is one of my favorite nodes because it unlocks a lot of possibility. So if there is an integration, a node, or a functionality for a particular node that you are missing, you can always use the HTTP request node to fetch that or make a call to that API. So what I am going to do is the first thing we need is to set up authentication. Now we've already set up authentication, and for this you only need header auth. The Twitter has a really good documentation on how to get the authentication for your for this application. So go ahead and follow it on Twitter. So header auth, I have over here Twitter token. I'm going to select that. Now this is going to be a simple GET request because again we are fetching some information from the Twitter API, and the URL that we are going to use is, let's see if I can quickly show it over here, is this one. So over here, this is the unique ID. For each and every user, this is going to be different. And with your authentication, you will only be able to request the followers for your account. So if you try to copy and paste the same exact URL, you are going to run into an error. Now, if you're not sure how to get your Twitter ID, there is an amazing tool which can help you with that. Let's quickly see if I can get that Twitter ID. Yes, it's called Twitter ID. You have to only pass on your username, click on convert, and then it gives you your ID. So now you have your ID and you know the URL, and I am assuming you have the Twitter authentication token in place. You can set this up. Over here, we want, just the profile image. That's something that we need. You can also get a lot of other fields. It also contains the name of the user, I think the followers of your follower. I mean, the number of followers of that follower, the following. And if I'm not wrong, it also gives you the bio that they have on Twitter. So that's something interesting and, something to look into if you have, a creative mind. But yeah. And over here, because my Twitter image, I just want to update, the only three images or only, show three new followers. I have set the max results to 3. So now if I execute the node, it gives me the latest 3 followers for my Twitter account. This is wonderful. I got everything. But what we need is this profile images. And currently we just have the URL, but we don't have the actual image. So let's see how we can get that. But before jumping into that, let's try to understand what is happening over here. Or okay, let's do this. Let's first of all try to get that URL, see what happens in there, and then walk our way backwards to solve the problem. So again, I'm going to use the HTTP request node. This time, because it's a public URL, I don't need to set any authentication method. And another cool trick is the Twitter API gives you the image in, I think it's 400 by 400 pixels, or I think it's a lot lesser than 400 by 400. So it's kind of smaller than that, which does not help, in creating a good image. That is why we are gonna use another interesting stuff over here, that is the replace method of JavaScript to ask Twitter to send us image with the resolution of 400 by 400. So I'm going to go to add expression, and I'm going to get that Twitter URL that we got from the previous node. So I go to data, and over here, this is the problem that I was talking about. You see, we got 3 individual items, right? So if I select one item over here, and because this is a file, I'm going to select file. If I execute this, we are going to get just one single image, right? But we want the 3 different images for 3 different followers. And that is where you need to understand the data structure in Anytime. So let's go back to our previous node. Let's first rename this. I'm going to call this fetch new followers so that we know which node I am referring to. So in fetch new followers, we see that it says one item, but then it is returning, three different users or three different followers. Now this is because n8n follows a different data structure. So for n8n, everything that is within the curly braces is an item. Now because we just have one JSON object or one item within those curly braces, it just says one item. And we need to extract that out and then work from it. To do that, I am going to use the item list node because this reduces the code that you have to write. All you have to do is specify which field you want to split out. So in our case, it was data. Let me quickly show you. So we want to split out data because that contains this information that we need. Splitting out data in here. Now if I execute this node, we now have three different items. And now we have the information that we need. So let's go back to our HTTP request node. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the expression over here, because now you see it says not found. That is expected because the structure has now changed. So I'm going to come back over here, fetch that value from the previous node, which is this. And over here, you see that it says normal underscore normal.jpg. Now this is the size that the API returns, which is not really ideal when you want to use the images because it gets a bit pixelated. So what we are going to do is we are going to use the replace function. Let's do replace, and we want to replace normal with 400 cross 400. So what this is going to do is this is now going to return me an image which has a resolution of 400 pixels by 400. So if I execute this node now, if I go to binary, we got three different images, and that's what we needed. We needed three different images for three different followers. So if I open each and every image, we can see that all of these images are different. That's wonderful. So what we did, we fetched the followers from the Twitter API. We converted the incoming data structure into the structure that n8n understands, and then we fetch those images or the avatars of our followers. So everything looks good till now, but what we want to do next is do some data manipulation. So the first thing we want to do is change the dimensions of the image that we have. Now you might wonder, like, why did we, not directly ask Twitter to send us that particular dimension? Well, because the Twitter API can only return images in specific dimensions. The dimension that we want right now is 200 by 200 pixels. So we are going to use the edit image node. Now over here, the function is resize. The property name is going to be data because all the binary files that we have over here have a property name data. If you want, you can go ahead and change this over here. So if, let's just say, I call it avatar, if I execute this, you see it's avatar now for all the images. Now in my edit image node, I have to tell n8n, like, now the name is changed and it should be avatar. We want to change it to 200 by 200. If I execute this, it's going to run that operation, convert that file, and you see now the file size is a bit smaller than what we had previously. All right, so we reduce the file size, and now what we want to do is we want to crop this image. Now this is the fun part because this involves a lot of steps, and I personally learned a lot when I was working with this particular step. So let me show you what we are going to do. I'm going to open the existing workflow over here and show you the crop node. So over here, we are doing multiple operations. So we have a multi-step operation selected over here. The first thing is we are creating a transparent background, which has a height and width similar to the height and width that we set for the image. Next thing we are doing is we are drawing a circle, and then we are compositing our image on that circle. As a result, what would happen is it would basically create a circle on that image. So let's come back and now do the edit image. And let's see what we want to do is to multi-step. Again, remember the property name has to be exactly the same that we had for our binary files. So I'm going to call this avatar again. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create a transparent background. So I'm going to run the create operation, and we're just going to simply copy the hex code for this. Oops. Let's do create, come back, paste this, and this is going to be this of the same height and width that we had for the image. The next step we want to do is we want to draw a circle. So I'm going to add operation, select the draw operation, because we are doing a circle. I'm going to select circle. Now this circle, let's select again the color. I'm going to again copy and paste the color. Circle, paste the color. So this is basically the white color. And now for the circle, this is something that you should know, which I learned while I was experimenting a lot with this operation, is the start position for both X and Y should be exactly the half of the uh, height and width that you have for the image. So the height and width is 200, and hence the start position would be 100. That's exactly half of 200. And now to have the correct position, the correct end position for X and Y. For X, it's 1/4 of the total height and width. So, my bad. It's going to be 1/4 of the start position. So this is going to be 25. And for Y, it is going to be exactly half of the start position of Y, which is 15. So if I execute this node now, and if I show you binary data, well, you basically cannot see it right now because we have a transparent background. And on top of that, we have a circle, which is not so helpful right now. But let's just go ahead and do add operation. I'm going to select composite because we now want to compose one image on top of other. So this composite image will be avatar. The operator would be in. Now again, I have experimented a lot with this stuff, and that is why I know which operation to run. But I would suggest you to, play a bit and see how it works for you, and then, decide which operation or which operator in this case you want to run. The X and Y position is going to be the same for me. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the format to PNG. Now this is optional. You can have the JPEG format as well. There is a default format that is for the image, but I usually like to work with PNGs. That's why I went ahead with PNG. If I execute this, and now if I open the file, we see that we now have those cropped images. So we have the crop image as well. Now what we want to do is we want to get a base image, which is gonna be my base image in here. Right. So this can be any image that you want. It depends on you, how creative you can be. I I just kind of used the image that I already was using for my Twitter banner for this experiment. I host this image on Cloudinary. So I'm gonna, quickly copy the URL, make a request to Cloudinary and fetch that URL and download it. Let's come back over here, have the HTTP request node. Now this is gonna be in a way a parallel operation. We don't want this to run in series because what is gonna happen is it's gonna append the binary file on top of each other's, which I don't want to do. So what I want to do is just call this in series. So I'm gonna paste the link again, call it a file. This time I'm gonna rename this to, let's just say, background or BG for short. And what other thing we want to do is we want to merge these images. But before that, there's another important step that we want to run, which is combining the binary images from here. Right now, if you see, we have three different images, which is what we wanted earlier. But what will happen is if I run the workflow, it would execute three times, do the same stuff three times, and it's not gonna append these files one by one. We're just gonna basically append an image on top of the other, and we're just gonna have a single follower on our Twitter banner. That's what not we want. So for this, we are gonna use some JavaScript code. So I'm gonna use the function node, and I already have the code, so I'm just gonna quickly copy the code, and then I'm gonna walk you through it. All right. So let's see what is happening. So we defined a empty binary object. Then we are looping from all the items that we have. And what I'm gonna do is I am gonna change this to maybe avatar. Let's just call it data. That does not matter. So what we are doing is we are okay. Let's replace this to avatar. All right. We are getting all the files from the previous node and we are appending it to the same binary array. So instead of showing three different files, it's gonna tell us that, hey, now we are returning only one object to you, but that one object is gonna contain three different files. So now if I execute the node, hopefully everything should work fine. Now if you see, it shows only one item, but if I switch to binary, we have three different files. Again, it is one item, but this one item contains three different binary files. Now let's use the merge node to merge the information that we get from Cloudinary as well as from a function node. All right, folks, let me know if I am going too fast or if you have any questions. Just ask me in the chat if you have any questions, and I would be happy to, walk you through the process again and help you understand the steps. All right. So looking at the chat, I don't see any questions right now. So I think people are following what I have shown till now. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop a message in the chat and I will be happy to answer that. Cool. So moving forward, I am going to merge again all the binary files that I have. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the merge by index mode and I'm going to do left join. If I execute this and if I go to binary, we see that it's all written in a single item. So we now have BG and we have all the three different avatar images. Okay, let's just maybe rename a few of these nodes so that we know what is happening in each of these. So this was fetching images, or maybe avatar, does not matter. And I'm gonna call it fetch bg for fetch background. This node was resizing our image. So resize. You can also see what is happening in the flow. Gonna rename this one as well because it's cropping the image. So let's just call this crop and let's eat. All right. Now we have the merge node in place and we have all the binary files that we need. Now, this kind of the second last step what we want to do is we want to composite these images. So we already ran a composite step in the crop node, which basically composited the avatar to the circle that we drew. Now what we want to do is we want to composite the avatars that we crop onto our background image. So again, this is going to be a multi-step process, and I'm going to explain you why. So edit image. I'm going to go ahead and select multi-step, and over here, the property name again, I'm going to call it BG because this is the file on which we want to composite the other images. Let's select composite. Now this is why we selected multi-step. You see now we have the option to specify an individual uh, property of the binary file. So let's just say we want to do data 0, which is referencing to the first avatar over the x and y. Let's just let it be 0 0. We can play around with it. We can see how it does, and then we change it. I'm just going to let it be 0 0. Execute the node, and let's see what it does. All right. Ooh, this is interesting. So we got the image, but it's too huge. So we still don't have the smaller image. But I think that's fine. That's fine for the demo. We can always go ahead, resize the image, and then run from there. But yeah, let's see what else we want to do. So we have the first image that's running wonderfully well. Now let's see. Ooh, we got Akash. He says, good going, no issues so far. Wonderful. I'm glad that it's going good and you are able to follow. And we got PP 2220. They say they joined late. Don't worry. I am gonna, you're not too late. I can, quickly go through all the steps and cover what we did till now. So let me quickly come back to the first node that I am using. It's the HTTP request node. I have renamed it to fetch new followers because this is what this node is doing. Now to fetch new followers, you would need to have your authentication, your access token from Twitter. You can always go to the Twitter documentation, learn how you can create that, and just add it to n8n. Once you have that in place, you want to make request to this particular URL. Now in this URL, the user ID, so this is basically the user ID. It's unique for each and every user, and you will be only able to fetch the latest followers for yourself. You won't be able to follow someone else's followers. So you need to get your user ID, and there is this wonderful website that's called Twitter ID. Input your username, click on convert, and it returns your user ID. Now that we have a user ID, what we are doing is I am telling Twitter that I want the profile image, and I'm telling just return, the last 3 results for me. Once I have that, it returns the information to me. Now, if you see on the top, it says there's one item, but in here we have got 3 different profiles, right? So this is something very native to n8n. So what we have to do is we have to convert this into the data structure that n8n understands. Now again, if you don't know about data structure, if you don't know about, JSON objects, arrays and stuff like that, It's completely fine. What you need to see or observe over here is you in this particular square braces, you have just a single curly braces, and that is why it returns one item. But what we actually want is this three different items, which is defined in this curly brace, in this square brackets. So what we are doing is we are using the item list node. We are telling it to split these items, which is in data. And now if you see, we have three different curly braces, which means we have three different items. And on the top, you can see it says three items. Now that we have three items, we are fetching the images. So we are using the expression editor, passing on the URL from the previous node, and we are using the JavaScript's replace function to replace the word normal with 400 by 400 because the Twitter API, this particular URL with normal returns returns the avatar, which is not of such a high quality. That is why I always change this to 400 by 400. Later on, we are going to resize this. Once we have that, we run the resize operation. We change it to 200 by 200. We execute this, and then then we basically resize the images. Now, if you see over here, this is still a square image. Now, if you want to have those square images on your profile banner, you can, go ahead with the next step, or basically skip the next step and move ahead with the function node. But I like to create those circle, this particular circles, or convert those squares into circles, and that is where this particular step is really useful. So it creates a transparent background. The first step is doing that, and then we are drawing a circle on the transparent background, and then later we are compositing the avatar images in that particular circle, and as a result we get a nice cropped image. Ooh, that's you. That's wonderful. Thank you for following me. No, I like there is a lot of possibilities, but I don't want to talk about that right now because I might get distracted. Uh, but I'm gonna touch on that in a while because there are a lot of things that I have ideas around and I might start implementing that because if you have this workflow up and running, instead of fetching the followers from Twitter, you can get any kind of data, manipulate that, and then simply append it on your background image and then update the Twitter image. So there is a lot of possibilities and I'm going to touch on that. All right. So what we did in this step, we cropped the images, and you see over here we still have three different images. Now what we want to do is we want to combine all these images into a single item. So I am using the function node. I have a custom function in here. Now, if you want to, if you are not sure how to get this function, it's already present on the documentation of n10. So if you go to n10.io, and it should be under reference. Let's just see JavaScript code snippets and split binary data. Ooh, okay. So this is doing the opposite of what we want to do, but it's kind of, you can take a look at it, try to understand what is going on, and then implement it. There is a community member who created a pull request, which kind of reduces the step of writing the code or using the code, and he added the functionality to do the same thing with the item list node. So once that is released, you can use that, and you can and then you can probably what do you say that? Yeah, and then you can probably just remove the function node and use that. The next thing I'm doing is I am fetching the background image. So this is my background image that I'm going to use. I'm doing the merge operation, and now we have the background image and everything in here in the same item. Taking a look, I see I followed and unfollowed, but the image was still showing. Yeah. So that's the thing that I haven't configured yet. So the workflow that I am showing is it's the same that I am using, but instead of running it periodically, I configured it with the Twitter webhook API, which is again really interesting. Uh, I might able to cover this in the stream. Let's see. We have time. Yeah, we have time. So hopefully I would be able to cover this. But with that, what I am doing is if someone follows, I run this workflow and that's it. I am not checking, on the unfollow activity, and that is why the banner image is not getting updated. But for the MVP, that's fine. And yeah, probably if I was running it in a different way, if I had configured it that, then it would have been a bit different. But thanks for pointing it out, and I might look into that, and I might also, share the solution later. All right. So now that we have all the images in place, what we did was we again used the edit image node. Now again, you can always use different services. So there is a node for panel bear. There is API template. So you can use the services to create these images. But something that I found was you have to pay the services to use them. They always have some API limitations. And earlier I was running this workflow kind of every 15 minutes. So I was pretty sure I'm gonna hit that limitation quickly, and I would have to start paying them. And I wasn't sure how many API calls I would be making or what would be a good cap. So I thought, why not use the native nodes of N10 and start doing it? So the edit image node is a native node in N10, and that's what I'm doing. So now in this step, what we did was we composited the avatar. We started compositing the avatar images on our background image. So if I go to binary and now if I open the BG image, we see that we have now the uh, the avatar image, right? Now again, this is again kind of showing the old image or not the latest image of the followers or the latest followers because I executed the workflow a while back and I am still processing on that data, right? So we got the first image. Let's do the same thing for the second one. So I'm gonna again do an operation, do composite. This time we want to do it for data one. This can be again over and let's just change the position to maybe 100 cross 100. I don't know how it's gonna look, but let's just execute and see. Execute this. Ooh, all right. So we got the second image, right? Now this is something that you would have to try out on your own and see what is the perfect dimension for you or what is the perfect position for you. So you can always just play around with this, try out different dimensions or try out different pixels and then play around with that. Let's see. We did this. Okay. One thing that I want to do is reduce the size of these images because it's too huge. So what I want to do is reduce the size of it. I am gonna add this step over here. I'm gonna again resize the cropped images. So I am gonna probably duplicate this node. Instead of 200, let's just say 75 by 75 and connect it in here. Connect this to the function node again. And let's just execute this and see the new size of these images. All right, so now the images are smaller, which is good, which is what we wanted. So now if I execute the node, it should fetch the image, merge those images, and composite the two images. All right, so now you see that we have composed the images and they are in here. This is working well. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to, uh, reference the dimensions that I am using in my actual workflow. All right, so for the first one, it's 1375. Let's do that. So let's do 1375. For the second one, it's 1103.75. Wonderful. So let's do 1100 and 375. For the last one, I am assuming it's gonna be 1200 and 375. Maybe. Let's see. If I now execute this. Wonderful. So we now have those images aligned pretty well in our Twitter banner, right? So we have this over here. Let's just run this from the beginning and see if we get some new data in there. Open edit image node, click on binary, show binary data, and all right. So we have 3 images now. All right. So I think we again kind of run into the same problem. I think this is something to do with the Twitter API because we are fetching that information from the Twitter API. Twitter API somehow hasn't updated on the followers. That is why I think someone who unfollowed me is still showing on my profile, but I think that's fine for now. So now we have the workflow running. The last step is to update it on Twitter. So for this, again, a friend HTTP request node is going to come very handy. So this time we are uploading the image. Now for this, the Twitter API tells you to use OAuth 1. Now again, I have already configured my Twitter OAuth 1 credentials, but the Twitter API or even the written documentation shows you how to create the OAuth 1 credentials for Twitter. So just go ahead to the documentation and create those credentials. If you face any problem, just feel free to hit me up on Twitter, or you can always reach out to the Anytime team on community.anytime.io, and the folks are gonna help you out there. Now I'm gonna quickly copy the API URL. Here's the API URL that we want to use. So if I open this, it's api.twitter.com, update profile banner quotation. Right now in here, we are not sending a JSON, and that's why we need to select JSON or raw parameters. And the other thing that we need to set is the body content type, which is going to be form data multipart. Now again, this is because we are sending a binary file. For that, select send binary data option to true. And in here, we specify the binary field that Twitter looks for, that is called banner, and then the binary property name, which is BG in our case. Again, this is the binary property name that we have in here. You can always change that from the options, but I'm going to stick with BG. I'm going to open the HTTP request node, execute the node. All right. So it says it got executed, but nothing got written by Twitter API. That's fine. But now if I go to Twitter, auto refreshed, and it showed the 3 followers. Now I know this is not really useful because we had kind of the same image, but if someone new followed us, we could have seen the new updated image on Twitter, right? All right. So I think I have 10 more minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly demonstrate or maybe show you the web API that I was talking about, or the webhook API. that I was talking about and how I am using it in N10. But before that, let me show you how you can run this on a regular interval. So there are two different nodes, that you can use. The first is the cron node. So you can use the cron node, set the cron time, you know, every day, maybe, run at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe you want to run it every minute, every hour. You can select the minute for that, every day, every week, like the possibilities are endless. And you can also, set up a custom cron uh, expression to run it at a specific time that you want. And the other node that you can use for this is the interval node. So in the interval node, you can see there is an option to run this every second, every minute, every hour. You can also set the interval. So you want to maybe run it every 50 seconds. Let's just say, right? So you can set it up over here, uh, connect it to the HTTP request node, save the workflow. It says there's a problem. Oh, okay. So there is already a workflow with this name. All right. Problem. Let's just rename this. We are going to call this Twitter banner demo. Activate this. Now this workflow is going to run every 50 seconds and update our Twitter banner. Right. All right. I'm going to just for now disable this because I already have one workflow that is handling that. But let's take a look at the webhook API of the webhook Twitter API and see how you can run this every time you have a new follower. So instead of running this for every minute, every hour, you can actually run this uh, every time someone follows you on Twitter. So let me see if I can open the Twitter webhook. All right. So here is my Twitter webhook workflow. Now, don't worry. This looks complex. This looks complicated, but a lot of things over here is something that you should not worry about. It's not something that you need. So what I'm doing over here is uh, I went to Twitter. I configured my webhook URL. Now, if you can create a webhook, copy the URL, configure it in Twitter. So once you have configured that, you have to do two things. The first thing is you have to have the kind of the same webhook URL, but this one is the GET request. So Twitter randomly sends a GET request to that webhook URL for verification purposes. So I have a crypto node which basically hashes uh, the incoming information from Twitter with the secret that I have, and then it is gonna send the response back to Twitter. So Twitter knows, okay, this is the URL, this is the correct webhook URL that it has to use to send the information. And this is the URL which is actually getting that response. So I have kind of the mock data for almost all the events. So if I create a new tweet, this is the response that you're gonna get from the webhook URL. So this is the huge payload data that Twitter sends. So we can see it is the tweet create event, and then it contains all the information. Similarly, there is no quoted tweet. So if I quote someone's tweet, it executes the workflow. If I delete the tweet, it executes the workflow. If I retweet a tweet, it still gets run. If I like a tweet or if someone likes my tweet, this workflow gets executed. And if someone follows me, this is what the data looks like. If I come in here, the type is follow, and you can see that there's follow events in here. right? So because there are a lot of events that triggers a workflow, what I did was I created some rules in the function item node. If I open my function item node, you can see what I'm doing is I'm telling like, hey, if it's the favorite event, so if I like the tweet, or and if the person who likes the tweet is not Herschel1912, that's my Twitter handle. So if someone else likes a tweet, go to route 0. So I'm basically telling it to go to route 0. If the event is follow events, go to route 1. Right. So someone follows me, it goes to route 1. And in the switch node, this is where I'm listening for the routes. So over here, I'm listening, for the incoming route from the previous node, and based on the value, I'm telling this should be the output. So again, if someone likes the tweet and it's not me, go to the output 0. So anything that's connected to this particular output, let me zoom in, is going to execute. And if it's the other event, that's the follow event, go to output 1. So this particular path is getting executed. Now what I did was I am using the execute workflow node. So what this node does is it tells N10, hey, you already have a workflow which has an ID 19. Go ahead and execute that workflow. So then N10 will go ahead and execute our Twitter banner workflow, which is let's see Twitter banner, which is this particular workflow, right? So now this workflow does not run on any kind of interval or cron job. What it does is it runs every time I have a new follower. So this is how I am handling it and how I am doing it. Because I'm running out of time, I could not show the whole process of setting up the webhooks in Twitter. But this is something that I would encourage you to try it on your own. And if you again run into any problems, just hit me up on Twitter. We can already see my Twitter name somewhere over here, I guess. But yeah, that's what you can do. There is a lot of possibilities with the Twitter webhook API, like you already saw over here. I am, once someone likes a tweet, what I'm doing is I am getting, if it's the particular specific tweet they like, if they do that, I basically set the Twitter username and their ID, and then I store it in a table because what I want to do is I want to, maybe I am doing an event, right? I'm doing a live stream again. I do a tweet. People who like that are probably interested, in attending the live stream. So what I can do is maybe an hour before the stream, I query a table and I send them a DM on Twitter, or maybe I just tweet them like, hey, I'm going live in an hour. You can join me over here, just to send them an reminder, right? So that's one of the use cases for the Twitter webhook API. Now, coming back to the Twitter banner, there are a lot of things as I mentioned, right? So right now we are only showing, the latest followers, but what all you can do is you can get your uh, number of commits from GitHub, the pull requests that you made, the issues that you have contributed to, and show them on your Twitter banner. So, something similar to what I did with GitHub Wrap, right? But instead of creating an image, what you can do is you can, create a Twitter banner for this and automatically update it on your Twitter profile. The other things that you can do is, let's just say you are hosting an event or you're participating in event, you're giving a talk at a conference or doing a workshop. All these, events, they have some kind of posters, right? So you can have a workflow which automatically updates your Twitter banner where whenever you got selected for a conference talk or whenever you have a workshop that is coming soon. That's another one. And if you are an indie hacker, you have your own products out there, you can always fetch the updates of those products, kind of analytics. Maybe you want to show your MRR, ARR, or the number of users that you have, all sort of stuff. Get them in Anytime, composite all those information on the image, and then simply update it on your Twitter profile, right? So what's next in here for me personally is I want to add all these functionalities into the native Twitter node so that you don't have to uh, get into sort of the hassle of creating the credentials. Once you create the credentials for the Twitter node, you can just use that with that. So you also don't have to then select okay, for this you have to select that URL, but for the followers or for uploading the banner, you can simply select that operation from the Twitter node, and you can use that in the workflow. All right, this is all that I wanted to show you in this live stream. I hope you enjoyed and you learned how you can create this dynamic workflow to upload your images, update your dynamic profile banner on Twitter. What I'm going to do also is I'm going to share this workflow on anytime.io/workflows page. So think of this as kind of a repository where you can find a lot of useful workflows. So if you're building, something with Anytime and you feel that the community might enjoy that, feel free to share that. You can already see we have a lot of workflows shared by the community members that you can, simply use. So let's just say, I want to, use this workflow. So if I have a website running on hosted on Netlify and I want to, get a message on Slack when the deployment fails, I can use this workflow. So I've copied the workflow. Let's go back to it and create a new one, paste this, and everything is in here. All I have to do is configure the credentials. Once I have my credentials in place, I can simply activate the workflow, use it, and I'm good to go. All right, folks. So let me know what you think about this live stream, and let me know what you want to see next. Thank you again for joining in. And I know there might be a lot of background music, I would say, coming from my end, but hopefully in the next live stream, that should not be a problem. I hope that wasn't a lot of problem for you as well. But once again, thank you for joining in. Do follow me on Twitter. Also follow me on YouTube. You can find that link on my Twitch profile. Yeah, because I am gonna continue with a lot of live streams. Gonna do more and more live streams. So I'm getting back to doing more live streams, and also share them on YouTube. So if you miss it, you can always watch them on YouTube. So that's what I am gonna do, and I am looking forward to hear back from you, know what you want to learn from me, and also see your Anytime workflows in action. So have a nice day, evening, night. Thank you for joining in, and take care.